Hey, everybody. Episode 2. Here we are. Sitting at the desk again, staring at the mic, and I got quite a bit more to say. But first off, I wanted to just clear the air and get something out of the way. And I figured, what better time to do it than now, second episode. If you're going to listen, you're going to listen. If you're going to be a fan, you're going to be a fan. You're going to like me as an individual, me as a person, and not judge me for what I think is best for me and my family, as I would never judge you for what you think is best for you and yours. So with that said, had an amazing weekend. I never like to brag, but very few and far between. 20 years of marriage, you go through a lot. You go through financials, you go through the loss of life. You learn a lot about who you are and a lot about the person that you're with. But more recently, you age together and you weather together, and you tend to enjoy doing the same things. I would imagine, after being with someone for 20 years, you got to have something in common. You really enjoy being around that energy. But again, not to get too off track, just wanted to talk about my weekend. Had a fantastic weekend. Spent some time with some friends we haven't seen in a while. I think it was like Memorial Day. We might have hung out for a little bit. And we got together this weekend. It was really, really nice to go out to, the South Shore, hang out with some great people. We actually went out to the beach, enjoyed, a wonderful, beautiful day on the beach. And then went back and hung out. We just had a great conversation with just some wonderful, kind people. Who had this great idea of, getting some lobsters and heading back to the house and just enjoying a wonderful meal and some great conversation. A couple of glasses of wine, a couple of rum and cokes, and a great roaring fire after a wonderful day of being outdoors and on the coastline. I find myself around these people and just really enjoying my environment, my energy. And then before I know it, the next door neighbors come over, and then another neighbor comes over, and just really good energy, great conversation. And just so happens that one individual, I look to my left, and she happens to be from South Korea. Find that very interesting. And if anything at all, someone that is publishing a podcast, one thing is evident, and it's that we like to talk. I like to talk. So I find myself in a situation where I have an educated young lady who is South Korean, and I would imagine that if you are South Korean, that it's an exciting time to be South Korean. I mean, of course, with if you're politics and you unless you live under a rock, North Korea has always been what it is. And I would imagine that if you're South Korean, you could find some kind of peace in your country or the continent. That's a good thing, right? And so that's to my left. I look to my right, and just so happens that the luck has it that it's someone from Russia. And I'm saying to myself, wow, how often do you get an opportunity to sit in a circle with people with such a range of dynamics? You get someone from South Korea, someone from Russia, and, myself here, I'm an American. With that said, just kind of really, talking about nothing, and the conversation circled. And, at some point, my interest is piqued, and I want to ask a question. And, I reach over to the left, and I ask, and I say, hey, pretty cool, right? South Korea, United States, and, things kind of maybe working themselves out, and, who knows, maybe there might be peace in the region. And, she was really receptive to it real quick. And she's like, yeah, true. And then, I got to be honest with you, my next move is really going to be to speak over at the Russian individual and say something along the lines of, hey, so what do you think? I mean, Putin, Trump, the relationship there is, if nothing else, it's one that's economically sound, I guess. I'm not by any means an economist or nor am I a politician by any means, but what I do know is, what I hear and what I read. So, kind of getting to the long end of it, we begin to kind of the conversation kind of shifts a little bit, and of course it becomes a Trump conversation, and really I found myself kind of defending myself, and that really wasn't where I wanted to be. I would never want to give anybody the impression that by any means that I am a Trump supporter per se. What I am a supporter of is the country that I live in. I am a supporter of someone who takes command and doesn't really take shit from anybody. And I think anyone in their professional career, anyone who has a family, anyone who has anything that they care about, you're passionate about those things, and you do what you can to preserve and keep it as long as you possibly can. With that said, look, I'm not saying that I support Trump. I personally think he's arrogant. I think he's got to be the biggest dick in the room. And it, quite honestly, like, he doesn't represent me as a man. I find myself that I am a respectable human being, regardless to what you are, who you are, or where you came from. That doesn't matter to me. I think, I've mentioned it in the first episode. My measure of a man or a woman is, someone who's willing to dig a hole as deep as I am. So, with that said, I found myself uncomfortable, uneasy. It was really kind of getting towards the end of the night, and people were drinking, and they had spent their days doing what they were doing, so we were kind of just melting there at the end of the night, and it kind of felt awkward for me, and I'd never really been in that position where I felt like I had to defend myself, and at that point, I wasn't defending myself. I refused to do that, and my rebuttal to the conversation was kind of cut short, because what I was hoping was, to really have an intellectual, educated, really cultural, dynamic conversation with people that I might never have an opportunity to be in the same room with, let alone to be in a relaxed, comfortable environment, with some alcohol and some just good vibes. So I continue to just, mention and say, look, guys, I don't get the wrong impression of me. I'm by all means, am I not sitting here and saying that I'm rocking around with a Magna hat, but by the same token, you have to admit that, again, I apologize to the liberals or to whoever, but you got to admit the country is financially in a better place. I mean, and you can't deny that. And I don't want to argue with anybody about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to make it a topic. I don't want it to take up any space in my podcast or what I do. But, at the end of the day, guys, you just have to call it what it is. And the country is in a better place. I'm kind of glad that we're not getting kicked around anymore, and that, we're really trying to, divert the money that where it should go, and stop giving it to countries that don't deserve it or don't need it. Or hate us and have ideas about us that aren't true. It's politically driven by whatever motivation they have, and you got Puerto Rico and the corruption, and you're sending all these people money, and the people that need it don't get it. It's very frustrating. But now I don't want to get too far off topic. I'm again back to the party, and we're sitting around. And that was exactly what I said. And I didn't really get into all the detail, and I just really said, I said, guys, you just can't deny. And funny to me that an individual that I really didn't even think would be part of the conversation kind of came out of left field and made a statement along the lines of, well, he goes on a bus and talks about grabbing women by the pussy. So at this point, I look over at my wife, and I realize that there is no conversation. I can't. You can't have an intellectual conversation with someone whose mindset is in denial and refuses to have a conversation. Whether you are happy or unhappy, you need to talk about it. If you're at work and you're not happy with your job, what do? You go to your boss, right? Hey, I'm not happy. If your boss doesn't do nothing, you go to his or her boss and say, hey, I'm not happy. And if that doesn't work out, you quit. You look for a new job. You move on. You move on. You hear that? You move on. And that's what we need to do at this point. We need to put the garbage behind us and stop being so PC. Get over it. Let's enjoy each other's company. You know, how can you have a conversation with somebody when they go in and the only thing they can say to have any type of input in a conversation that I'm hoping is going to be maybe a positive one of light, to say that, hey, look, we're all here together. We're all immigrants. You know, my parents came here. You know, my mom, my dad, both immigrants, and they both, you know, went through the process and got their citizenship and are both American citizens. How difficult is that? It's a lot easier now than it was back then. You know, it really was. You know, back then there was no, hey, look, you can read it in Spanish, or here, you can read it in Portuguese. No, you had to read it in English. You had to recite it in English. Does it mean that we don't need to adjust and we don't make adjustments to help people and, you know, maybe make the process a little easier? Yeah, guys, I'm all about it. Streamline the system. But you cannot streamline freedom, and you cannot streamline the fact that we do live in the greatest country in the world. Plain and simple. With that said, I probably will never talk about this type of thing again. I'm not a fan. You know, I'm a strong believer that two things, politics and religion, don't talk with your friends. And, you know, unfortunately, I usually live by that rule. And here I find myself, you know, talking about something like that in a situation where we're in a friends kind of environment. Who I really, you know, again, you know, maybe I should save those conversations for when I'm around close people, close friends, people that, you know who I am and, you know me and judge me as, you know, off my character, and not so much, you know, hey, a guy that isn't from the South Shore, you know? So with that said, it really, really bothered me. It bothered me because that mindset is what drives, everything, you know, that's somebody's dad, that's somebody's friend. And, you know, the conversation that they have is about what probably all of them say. Listen, guys, hey, guess what? I have had some inappropriate conversations in my life with my friends. Yep, imagine that. Imagine that. And I will bet you every single person out there listening right now says or can say the same exact thing. All right? You talk with your friends. You don't mean it. You don't mean any harm to anybody. You have these stupid conversations. I mean, God forbid, you know, the Twitters and the Instagrams, you know, that shit wasn't around when I was young. If it was, my goodness, you know, not so much me, but I know a lot of people that would probably be in a different place in their life right now. So, you know, I guess we have to adjust, right? Because that's just the speed of technology. You know, the 2-second news feed, you know, it happens 2 seconds later you hear about it. But it frustrates me. And the fact that, you know, Trump had a stupid conversation on a bus with someone was the only thing that this individual had to contribute to the conversation. So am I mad that he said that? I'm frustrated, yes. Am I really upset at the fact that I lost the opportunity to have a great conversation with people from different parts of the world that I might never have a conversation with? Yeah, I was pretty pissed off about that. So at that point, we kind of, you know, Rachel gave me the eye, and I get the message, and we packed our shit and we came home. It was a great night. It was a great weekend. I wouldn't change a thing, but it did bother me that, you know, people refuse or deny themselves the opportunity to have a conversation. You know, and it scares me because I've raised both my children. I'm working on my granddaughter, and my message to them has always been, speak your mind. Say what you need to say. You never have to be anywhere you don't want to be. You never have to do anything you don't want to do. You can make it yours. If you don't want to work for somebody, then you work for yourself. But you're going to have to put the work in, and you're going to have to make it work. But it's going to happen here. That's going to happen in this great country. That's not going to happen anywhere else. It's going to happen here with us, with the support group, with opportunity. Then again, I go to these events. I try to have a conversation with people, and the only thing they have to say is what they heard on extra. Like, really, I'm not watching that shit, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just not watching it. It's fake news. It's garbage. What I watch, guys, I got to be honest with you. I'm in my 40s. So for me, the birth of Twitter, some of you are probably listening that don't know a world that didn't have Twitter in it. To me, I have found that Twitter has become probably the best source of news that's out there. I tend to see that it's not very biased. I pick and choose what I want to listen to. I pick and choose what I want to, comment to, and so for me, it really works. Now, watching the news, the Fox News and the CNNs and all that of the worlds. To be honest with you guys, I'm not a commercial guy. I don't like commercials. Everything's breaking news. If you put on Fox News right now, I will guarantee you, in 8 minutes, Fox, breaking news, Fox, news alert, Fox. Enough. I'm sick and tired of the news outlets trying to scare you. That's all they try to do. They want to scare you. Everything they say is meant to scare you. And everything they say is driven. It's motivated. None of it's. You'd like to think that maybe the Associated Press is a little unbiased, but all these news outlets, it's all about shock value and how much commercial time they can sell. So for me, watching the news, guys, you'll catch me watching Sunday morning on CBS. I think it's a fantastic show. I think it always delivers a great message. It's a feel-good story, and if anybody works hard for the week and is looking for some peace of mind, great show, 8:30 in the morning on Sundays. Check it out. It's fantastic. So I spent some time on the South Shore this weekend. Don't typically go out to that, that side of the state. Usually if anything at all, we usually head up north, and we usually enjoy the mountains and the scenic views and the drives and everything. But, again, we had some friends that invited us out that way, and hey, you know what? We're all about having fun and enjoying some time. So we went, and it was, again, I wouldn't change a thing. It was fantastic. And, I look forward to hanging out with them again. And I would hope maybe I might have an opportunity to have conversation with people like that again. Do I think I'll have that opportunity again? Probably not. But, the couple that we were with, for the weekend are amazing, wonderful people, that we love dearly, and I cannot wait to hang out with them again. So I really look forward to that, and I hope that that small little speed bump at the end of the night didn't impair our relationship or the opportunity for us to hang out again, because I'd be really upset about it, and I would confront them, and I would talk to them about it, because I to my original point to this whole rant from the get-go is that my opinion and my political thoughts are my own. I make my decision at the voting booth. I believe that if you don't vote, then shut up. Either you get up and just take a ride down the street and poke a couple of holes in a piece of paper and just cast your judgment, because it matters. It matters what you have to say, and if we don't all recycle, the oceans never get clean. If we all don't vote, then the same people stay in office and nothing ever changes. So when you're driving down the road in your brand new Maximas and your Mercedes and your really nice cars, and you hit a pothole and you got to go to City Hall to get your money reimbursed, and there's no one there that wants to help you, chances are you voted the person in there that gave that person the job that they're not doing very well. So remember that. It trickles down all the way down. So get out there when you have an opportunity and always cast your vote for the people you want. Okay, done with the rant. Don't want to talk about that anymore. But again, I just want to reiterate that I don't have a Trump opinion. My opinion is for the country. I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. So I make my own decisions based on what I think is best for me and my family and I would strongly suggest that all of you do the same. And I don't cast judgment on anybody for their beliefs or what they like to do for fun, because we all have our fixes. I always ask that people don't judge me for mine, because again, life is short, and we try to enjoy the little time that we have together. So that's pretty much the first 20 minutes of the show. Me kind of just clearing the air with that. It's been bugging me. Here it is. It's Tuesday. That was on Saturday, and it was kind of just eating me up inside. And I probably sound a little winded about it, but I really needed to get that out and exhaust that because, again, you think that people that your own age, that have kids and maybe share the same struggle. And you know what? Let me take that back, guys. Maybe people on the South Shore don't struggle, right? Maybe people on the South Shore have more money than I do and can afford to be that way. Me personally, I don't. I work really hard for what I have, and it really takes a lot for me to make a financial decision and commit. My wife and I talk about everything that we do. We're diligent on what needs to be paid, when it needs to be paid. Sometimes you make sacrifices. We all want toys, but you put those things aside because ultimately home is the most important thing. And the idea that I'm able to be here with my wife, my son, my daughter, my granddaughter, and enjoy this space. I've got my studio. I'm able to have this opportunity to vent out to all of you, and just hope that maybe some of you or most of you can share the same ideas as me and just be open-minded about these things, and just have a conversation about it. Let's talk. Just sitting around and waiting for shit to happen, or just waiting for someone else to speak for you, it just doesn't work anymore. I hate to keep going back to it, but the wife and I, we're getting a little older now, and really, I guess we're just appreciating these moments. We're making new friends and other couples, and we're hanging out, and and it's all like-minded, and it's funny. It's just a commonality that we all have. But then again, like, it just surprised me to. I hate to keep going back to it, but it just surprised me that these people are my age. Like, we're all the same. Like, we're close in age. Is 10 years close in age? Probably not. Probably not. I'm probably kidding myself. But they say 40 is the new 30. Maybe I'm kidding myself on that too. But either way, I mean, probably the most out of everybody that was there, I'm going to say that maybe 10 years difference. But other than that, we're probably like within a 5-year range. You know what I mean? 35 to 40, right? So, but again, I'm not from the South Shore, so I don't know. You know what? Neither are they. Right? I told you South Korean, Russian. I think one might be Polish. So, you know what? They're just like me. They probably came from somewhere else and ended up there, right? Because I came from the city, and I landed where I landed, and quite honestly, to me, a little slice of heaven out in the woods, and I get to find peace whenever I come here. We made some small investments, made some adjustments, and able to save a little bit of money, finance a little bit over here, and mix a little bit over there, and installed a swimming pool last year. I mean, it was really one of the missing pieces of the house. When we lived in Florida, we had a 3-family and owner occupied, and I was on the first floor. We ended up, and we had a nice sized lot, so I kind of got geez, the stories I could tell you about that place. We ended up. I built a small garage right on the. The thing is that the law says that you could build something as long as it didn't have a foundation. You didn't need a permit. So I ended up building this 16 by 11 kind of garage shed. When my biker days, when I had my Harley, just because I wanted a place to store my bike. I was actually keeping it at my buddy Dave's house, and it just didn't make any sense. Driving 20 minutes to go see my bike, and I'd ride it for a little bit and put it back, and then drive 20 minutes home. So just put the belt on, picked up some wood, and built it. And then, so I had a great place to store the bike, work on the bike, spent the winter with the bike. But anyway, the point I was getting to was we decided that, hey, you know what we're missing is a swimming pool. But the funny part about it is the fact that I had the motorcycle. So probably like 2 years before I got the motorcycle, Rachel said, hey, listen, we need to get a swimming pool. Like, the kids are small right now. Let's take advantage of the opportunity. And of course, you get the tax return. You got a couple extra bucks and your little bling bling for like a month or so. So we had a couple extra bucks, and she's like, let's get a swimming pool. And I'm like, no, I don't want a swimming pool. I'm not. We're gonna get a swimming pool. I'm gonna have to take care of the swimming pool. I'm gonna have to clean the water. Nobody's gonna use it. I mean, every reason I could come up with for not getting a swimming pool. Long story short, that summer we got a swimming pool. So I ended up funny. I happened to just see him on Facebook, and I believe we're friends. I'm still, guys, listen, I apologize on the Facebook thing. I'm still figuring it out, but I believe Mike Rondeau, we're friends. I think we're friends, and I hope he's listening, because at the time we worked together at Comcast, and he was installing swimming pools on the side, like on the weekends, and so I'm like, hey, Mike, listen, you got to help me out. Like, I've never installed a swimming pool before. I know nothing about it. This is what I'm thinking I'm doing. Like, this is the size I'm thinking of going with. And he was more than happy to help out. Came over, kind of figured it all out, what it was going to do. And so I felt comfortable about doing it, But what they don't tell you, and what Mike didn't tell me, is that typically people use heavy machinery with like hydraulics and stuff like that to move dirt. But me, I'm a greenhorn with a shovel. So there I am out there with a shovel and a pick, and insisting that I'm going to install this thing myself. Funny part we did. My hand's bleeding, but we did. And then having the sand delivered, and the transit, and making sure that it's level, and I mean, guys, listen, you know what? Manny Joe's swimming pool service down the street, I bet you that guy is a fantastic guy and loves his family very much and loves to provide for them. So do me a favor, if you're considering getting a swimming pool, just call Manny and have him come do it, because for what do they charge you, like $900? Like, so it's not worth the $900 is what I'm telling you, because the time, the effort, the amount of weight, getting it all filled up, shop vacuuming in, make sure that the line is flat, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was one of the most monumental tasks that that I took, and quite honestly, a couple of times, like, I can't. Like, I guess I had to stop. So I probably 10 years of my life on that pool, I bet you, just putting that thing up. So with that said, I tell everybody, look, just pay somebody to come and install your swimming pool. So Mike came, helped us out. We get the swimming pool in, and because of the swimming pool, I couldn't get my motorcycle. So needless to say, I wasn't happy about it. Put the pool in, get it all set, get the water in. Truck comes, delivers it, fills the thing up, and I tell you, till this day, and I know she listens, and I know she's going to hear it, but I will admit to you that was one of the single greatest decisions that we ever made for our family. Between, my sister-in-law was living on the second floor, my sister-in-law Lisa with my nephew Ronnie and Bobby, and my daughter and Bobby are the same age. AJ was a little younger, but fit right in, and they literally spent every waking moment of the summer, many summers, in that swimming pool on that deck. So probably some of the greatest memories of my life, probably some of the greatest moments, parties, just such wonderful, wonderful, wonderful times around the pool. So long story short, I was very glad we got the pool. I'm glad we held off on the motorcycle. Getting the motorcycle, although I believe it was probably 2 or 3 years later, maybe, that I got my Sportster. It was the 2003 1200 custom anniversary. Beautiful motorcycle, beautiful bike. Beautiful bike. Loved it. Loved the thing. Thing was fantastic. Chrome. Spent all kinds of stupid money on the thing. I mean, you know what? To all the Harley owners out there, you know exactly what I'm saying. Just ridiculous. And they say that Harley Davidson HD, it doesn't spend for Harley Davidson. It stands for $100. Okay, everything's $100. You can't buy a light bulb for a Harley Davidson that's not $100. Just so everybody knows. So had this motorcycle, spent some great time on this thing. Ended up in just doing like a lot of the motorcycle runs, and Rachel and I really embraced the culture, and the bike runs, the polka runs. Orange County Choppers was huge at that time on TV, like Discovery Channel. It really was just like 40 years old, guys. I don't think I've ever seen that kind of popularity with motorcycles. And then you had Jesse James, and then you had American Built. Like the Discovery Channel just ran with all of it, and they had this great platform of motorcycle builders. Jesse Rook, who recently just passed away from California. I mean, these guys were building these one-off, amazing, incredible pieces of machinery. You know what I mean? And then they were doing the show about it. It was, we were all watching it. We were all building bikes. We were all hanging out. We loved it. We had the T-shirt. And of course, if you live in New England and you have a motorcycle, you've been to Laconia during Bike Week. It's right usually around June. I think right around Father's Day weekend. I think it's the week prior to Father's Day, and it kind of runs into Father's Day weekend. I think it ends. But for the town of Laconia in New Hampshire, this is their mecca of the year. They've got Lake Winnipesaukee. If you've never been up that way, it's a beautiful place to go. It's not cheap by any means. I mean, if you're getting a lobster roll, you're going to pay top dollar for it. Even though they tell you they're Maine lobsters, you would think, like, okay, so if it's a Maine lobster, then you just got it like down the street, so it should be cheap money, right? But it doesn't. They charge you more. But it is what it is. But you spend the money. They've got the boardwalk there. They've got a lot of great stuff, a lot of fun stuff to do. But I don't want to get too far off track. But being in up in that area and during that Bike Week time was really exciting. We met the Detroit brothers. Got a picture with them. You know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm going to start. When I tell you guys about these stories, I'm going to start posting the pictures from those times, because I know you guys are really appreciating them. We had such a great time. Had the bikes go up there. Myself, my wife, my sister-in-law, her boyfriend at the time, Ted, my buddy Paul Spooner came up for the day with his girlfriend at the time, and we had a blast. We ended up in my buddy Jay Cavallo, and the funny thing about that was that his wife was pregnant at the time with their daughter. And Stacy, so they committed to the trip prior to finding out that they were pregnant. So although they didn't go riding with us, they still committed, came on the trip. Jay still provided his truck and his trailer, and we loaded all of our. I mean, literally, it was all of us. 1, 2 is 8, 4 couples, and 3 motorcycles. And it was an expedition and 1 trailer, and we went all the way up to Laconia. Actually, we drove up. We ended up driving up to Conway. And the funny thing was, Jay had mentioned to me earlier in the week, he's like, listen, my overdrive button on my truck isn't working. He's like, do you think it's going to be all right towing the trailer? I'm like, yeah, man, it should be fine. I mean, it's just the 3 bikes, and Paul ended up taking his bike up in his van, so it was just the 3 bikes. It was the Ted's bike. He had a Fat Boy at the time. I had the Sportster, and Jay had a Lowrider. So just the 3 bikes. I'm sorry, just the 3 bikes. So we tow them up there, and years ago, the wife and I had a Dodge Caravan. And the transmission let go on it, and the only reason I bring it up is because when it let go, it was this disgusting odor that came from the car. But we had hit the New Hampshire border. We had just crossed over the New Hampshire border, and Jay's like, I gotta pull over. I go to the bathroom. So we pull over into this gas station, And immediately I get that. I could like almost, when you can smell a skunk, but you can't smell the skunk. Like you could smell it, it's there, but it's not. You can't. It's not that strong. It was that same. And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me. And that moment, I'm like, gee, I hope the transmission is all right. So, long story short, we get back in the truck. We drive up there. We ended up making it to the cabin. We unload everything, all the stuff there, and Jay went to go move the truck, and I guess finally when it cooled off, the truck wouldn't move. Like it wouldn't come out of gear. So now here we are in Laconia. In Conway with motorcycles, a trailer, and an expedition. And now we got to figure out how the hell we're gonna get all this stuff home. But we didn't let that ruin the trip, guys. We didn't. Even that night, like we were unloading everything, and the sky opened up and it poured. We didn't let it ruin the trip, and we still partied. We had an amazing time, and then that gee, I never forget that. What a great time! And then that morning was when we decided we were going to hop on the bikes and go in. But that night, Paul and his girlfriend at the time had come and shown up. And we ended up having an air mattress for them, and it was a blast. I mean, we had food, steak, I mean, you name it. We were partying, picking out, and just having just an amazing time with great people, just really just good people. And we get up that morning, and we had a great night, partied. We get up that morning, and now we're gonna drive in to Laconia. We're gonna go for a ride. It's bike week, of course. We're gonna want to go show off the bikes and ride around with the ladies on the back and show off what you got. And so we do. We get on the bikes. We go down and we're riding. And myself, Ted's on his bike, and Paul's on his bike. So it's the three of us. It's the three bikes. And we get to I forget. It's junction. Some junction. There's this kind of like this barbecue kind of smokehouse restaurant. We pull in over there. We had a great lunch. We ate. So I mean, it was probably like a 45-minute ride from the cabin to Laconia. So fantastic. Of course, you're in New Hampshire, right? What's the point? We're from Massachusetts. We never get the opportunity to ride a motorcycle without a helmet. None of us had helmets on. We were just enjoying just that fresh, beautiful, cold air, riding through those windy mountains. Till this day, I mean, I get goosebumps when I think about it. It was just one of those amazing experiences that you can't get any other way. You really can't, unless you've been on a motorcycle. If you've never been on a motorcycle, just you got to try it at least once. I mean, really, you have to just go for one of those rides. And I'm not talking about driving down 195 or Route 24, and I'm talking about the back roads in New Hampshire and the mountains where you get the hills and just beautiful views, and nobody's in a rush to go anywhere. It's really almost an out of body experience. But so long story, somewhat short. Anyway, we ended up in Laconia, and it was just a wonderful day. A lot of bikes. We're all kind of riding through, and then at some point we find ourselves in like the middle kind of mecca, middle of where Laconia is, where everybody parks their motorcycles, and kind of just park them, and you walk up and down the strips, and there's probably, 6 to 8 rows, maybe a quarter of a mile of just motorcycles just lined up, and and they're not. It's really not like a show. It's people parking their bikes because they're walking along all the stores, and they're just kind of shopping around, or they're going over to the beach area there, and getting a bite to eat. So I mean, you just really you're literally just looking at everyone's bikes. I mean, if you got bikes there that. Obviously, like the iron horses, and and you got the goofy toilet bike, and so you get a really just a huge range. And if you're into that, motorcycles, even if you're not into that, it really was like a. I mean, I know back in the day, another story for another podcast. I went to Laconia back in '94 with my friend Albert, when on I had my Suzuki, my GS325, and he had a Honda. But that's another story, and we'll tell that another day because that was a great time. But this time, so we back to where we were. So we're on the motorcycles, we're riding, and I am in the back. I'm 3, and Paul and his girlfriend are number 2, and Ted and my sister-in-law and the fat boy, they're number one, and then we're kind of riding in a row, kind of following each other, and there's so much to see. Like I said, there's bikes everywhere, so, and you're looking for a couple of parking spots, right? Because I want to park my bike, you want to park your bike, you want to kind of somewhat stay together, and in that process, Ted had hit the brakes because he had seen a spot. Well, Paul was looking over his right shoulder, didn't see that, and rear ends the back of Teddy's bike and smashes the fender. So, I mean, it was, it's funny because it's one of those situations where you could kind of see it. I could kind of see it happen, but there was nothing I could do to stop it. So, of course, I mean, and it sounds terrible, right? Because it's an accident, and of course it's metal, but nobody got hurt, and everybody was okay. It was just a matter of now it's more of a pride thing, right? Because now we're pulling over to the side, and everybody's looking, and nobody was upset. I mean, maybe my sister-in-law was a little upset, but she was a little uptight anyway. So get over it. The shit happens. It was an accident. It wasn't like Paul meant to do that. And I'll be honest with you. My buddy Paul Spooner is probably one of the most passionate, loving, caring, endearing individuals that I've ever known. I mean, Paul's always been a little kooky, but Paul's kooky to Paul. He's probably the most, or one of the most loyal people that I've ever known in my life. And he recently lost his mom, and April. God rest in peace, April. God rest your soul, and shout out to Paul. But long story, get back to what I was saying. So Paul hits it. We pull over, and right away my sister's like, "Well, no, it's in the tire." And I'm like, "Well, hey, look, just relax. Wait a minute. Let's just." So just give it him, So we get in there, and of course now we're kind of pulling the fender out a little bit, kind of getting it just so it doesn't rub on the tire, because it doesn't have to ruin our day. And I mean, it broke a little bit of the light and kind of pushed the fender into the tire. So when he was rolling, it was kind of rubbing. So we pulled on the thing, tugged on it, and Paul looked at Ted and said, "Hey, listen, when we get back, my guy's gonna call you, and we're gonna fix this. Like, this isn't gonna, like, right away. Like, as soon as we get back." Ted's like, no problem. And it wasn't. And we got back on the bikes, and we took off. We did a couple of more laps around, and it was just an amazing day. Even post the accident. So we got back to the cabin again. We ate out one night. One night we cooked dinner. We all ate. We all stayed at the cabin. Just really enjoyed everything. The alcohol, had a little green. It was just fantastic, And even though Jay and Stacy were able to come with us into Laconia, it was really, really cool to have them back at the cabin, because when we got back, the place was not only spotless, but dinner, everything ready, kind of like really inviting us when we came back. So it was just they made it that more special, which was fantastic. So if anybody's paying attention now, you realize that we arrived. We went for a ride on this day, and now we have to talk about, because it's Saturday, guys, and now Sunday's coming tomorrow, and we need to be at work for Monday. So if anybody's paying attention, we got a bad transmission in the Expedition. So now we got to figure out how do we get a trailer, an Expedition, and 3 motorcycles back to Fall River. So of course, ideas all over the place. I come up with this idea. I got a friend. I know somebody who's got a truck capable of towing. Because now the plan is this, guys. The plan is we're gonna ride the motorcycles home, and we're gonna use the trailer to carry the Expedition with a vehicle that can tow the trailer. Brilliant idea, right? Makes sense. So I reached out to this buddy of mine. Hey, Dire Straits, we're dying here. We're up in Conway. This is a situation. We're kind of stuck here. We need a vehicle, and I was a little heartbroken, because I thought for sure this person would have been like, "Yeah, man, we'll be there." But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So. Nope, no harm, no foul. It was what it was, and I can completely understand why he didn't. I probably wouldn't. You know what? I take that back. I would have came and got me. If it was me going to get me, I would have went and got me. In this case, I can understand his point. He wasn't obligated to me in any way, shape, or form. So, it was just a friend reaching out, and he didn't feel like he could, so he didn't. So plan two. So what's the next plan? The plan is okay. We're gonna hop on the motorcycles. We are gonna drive back to Fall River, drop off the motorcycles. We're gonna hop in Ted's truck and drive not only Ted's truck, but we need to drive Lisa's truck up as well, because now, mind you, we all came in the expedition. We all can't fit in Ted's van because Ted's van is his work van. So we drive all the way back to Fall River, drop off the bikes, pick up the 2 vehicles, drive all the way back up to Conway, load everything up, get the girls load up all the clothes, bags, all of our supplies. The monumental feat of getting that expedition on that trailer, getting it hooked up to the van, and then the drive home, which was me tailing him and the trailer at 50 miles an hour from Conway, New Hampshire to Fall River, Massachusetts. Single-handedly, the longest procession I have ever been in my life. And although the weekend was beautiful, and I have such wonderful moments and wonderful memories from that experience, unfortunately, the one that sticks out the most was the ass cramps that I had from not only riding my motorcycle, but driving that vehicle both ways from New Hampshire. Fortunately for all of us, we made it home safe. It was a no harm, no foul situation. I mean, obviously for Jay, it was a costly situation. I guess he ended up replacing the transmission in that thing. And then he sold it. And somehow Jay Cavallo is the wheeler and dealer of the century. He buys these things and sells them and somehow makes more money. I don't know how he does it, but he does. And he managed to do it again with this. So he did do that. Shout out to Jay. Shout out to Ted. Shout out to Paul. Good times, guys. Really good times. Great memories. And I mean, I wish I could do them again. I wish, I would do it. I would do it again. I would do it. With the right couples, if you guys wanted to get together and go up to Laconia, spend it, I would do it again. I probably wouldn't take a bike. My motorcycle experience is over. I'll probably never own a motorcycle ever again. Maybe, I don't know. I might do one of those Razor, one of those side-by-sides. I would definitely like to do that. I go to Maine with Stevie a lot, and I think that'd be great. Throw that thing in the back of the truck, go up there and blast around the mountains for a little bit. That sounds appealing and fun to me. But a motorcycle, quick story. I won't get too far out. I'm already almost 50 minutes into the show. Was the reason why I got rid of my bike. So I had the bike. The thing was mint, man. What a great bike. My favorite thing about Harley people are adorable to me, because everybody who owns a Harley, their motorcycle's worth $1 million. I don't care. It could be the biggest piece of shit on the planet. Oh, I got this 67 Knucklehead. The thing is fantastic. Shifts gears. You know what, dude? It's an old motorcycle. And if I wanted to go for a long ride, I probably couldn't, because I'd be on the side of 93 or in the middle of Boston traffic on the expressway, crying for my life. So the answer is no. If you're asking me, I'm buying an Evo. I'm buying a newer motorcycle with a warranty, so that way I can call roadside assistance and say, hey, roadside assistance, my motorcycle just shit the bed and get me off the highway. So that's how I feel about that. But anyway, so back to my experience with my motorcycle. We were doing a whole lot of riding. I mean, we were literally waiting for the weather to be 32 degrees. If it was 32 degrees, I was putting my jeans on, my coat, and I was going out for a ride on the motorcycle. Couple of things. One, Rachel really enjoyed to ride the motorcycle. So every time I got on the motorcycle and went for a ride, I felt bad that I was leaving her behind. At the time, Megan was young and AJ was very young. So here I am getting on my motorcycle, literally like just a textbook. I apologize to any of the fellas out there that do that. I don't want to call anybody out, but I felt guilty about it. Every time I went on the bike, I was kind of leaving her behind, even though knowing that she enjoys going for a ride and being riding bitch on the back. That's probably the only time I get away with that. So that reason, and then kind of really the ultimate reason was we went for a ride. I remember we were going for a ride. I was riding. We had some guys from work. And this is funny. Rode with a couple of guys like Ray Pacheco. It was a couple of. I remember Ray Pacheco, Dave, myself, Joe Shaker. Like everybody was buying motorcycles. Like when I tell you guys, it was the time of motorcycles. It was the time of motorcycles. Like everybody had a motorcycle. If you wanted a motorcycle, you had a motorcycle. Everybody had. But anyway, so we were all riding, and they were doing this like Wednesday night group thing. Hey guys, let's get together, go for a ride. So reluctantly one night I say, okay, let's go. I ride them. So turns out it's a bar hopping ride. So you get on your motorcycle, right? You get on these two wheels, Get on two wheels, and you drive to a bar, right? And you down as many shots as you can, right? And then you hop back on two wheels again, right? And then you ride to another bar across town. You park, and you drink more shots, and then you get back on two wheels again, and then you zip off and leave everybody behind, and nobody knows where everybody goes. So that was my experience with it. Although with the exception of the alcohol, I don't drink when I drive. Especially don't drink when I was driving my motorcycle. So that was kind of like the first and last time I did that. But back to the reason. I was riding my motorcycle quite a bit, and to the point like even hanging out with people like that and going for a ride. But I was going to, I think was I with Dave? I think I was with Dave. This could have been one of the last few times that we rode together. I think it might have been Dave, Keith, a couple of guys, and somehow we found ourselves out in Rhode Island, and we were down like Nanaquacket area, like 177, and then down by like the Nanaquacket Bridge. And I always remember the Nanaquacket Bridge was on my right. There was like a seafood place over there, and they were doing like road construction, and the road was like all like ground up when they got the lines in this. So kind of the tires in the motorcycle. If you've never been on a motorcycle, you wouldn't know it, but when you're on a motorcycle and they got that grooved pavement, the tires kind of settle into the grooves, and it almost makes the kind of bike wiggle under your butt. At first, it's a little like uncomfortable, but then you realize that the bike's not going anywhere, so you kind of get used to it, and you just kind of slow down a little bit. Well, anyway, in this case. There was I never forget it. It was a gold Toyota Corolla that was in front of me, and I was right behind it with my Harley, and you know what? I was probably following too close. I'll admit it. I was definitely following too close. She happened to drive and straddle right over a. If you guys ever seen them, like the big cones on the highway, they get those rubber like half tires that they put on top of it, so like the wind doesn't blow it over. Well, someone had left one of those rubber tires in the middle of the road. Now she drives over this thing, and I don't have a time to react, and my front tire goes up and over and into this thing. Immediately, like the bike does this Chinese endo, like I'm like a Chinese wheelie, and I can feel the back of the bike kind of coming over my shoulder, and for whatever reason, I kind of let off the brakes, and the front wheel kind of hopped out of it, and I remember the back wheel slamming down, and I somehow, they tell you can't recover from a wheel wobble. In this case, I did. I recovered from the wheel wobble. I actually had to pull over. I had to stop. I had to pull over and like just catch my breath, because I honestly, like, it's not bad enough that you're doing like 40 miles an hour, right? It's grooved pavement. Like if you fall, it's not just like you're falling on tar and you're gonna roll it. This is grooved tar. Like this is gravel. I mean, this is just a disaster waiting to happen. And it just took me a minute, and I came to the realization that what, I don't want to die this way. Again, guys, no bad juju to anyone, man. I hope everyone is always, you go for the blessing of the bikes, do whatever you got to do to make sure that you're safe, man. Wear bright clothes, whatever it takes. But I got scared. I was afraid that I was gonna die on a motorcycle. And if you don't die, the chances of what are you, a vegetable, right? I mean, it's one thing to not know, but it's another thing to know it after the fact. You live your whole life, and then all of a sudden something like that happens. I mean, what a tragic thing to happen to anybody, and what a terrible thing to do to your family, right? I mean, responsibly, like I'm responsible for these people. They trust me to provide for them, and here I am doing, crazy shit on a motorcycle that I probably shouldn't be doing, So it really put things into perspective for me, and it's funny. Like, I'll go back to what I said earlier about Harley Davidson people. The people that own these bikes, you think you got a nugget of gold here, or you got you got the Princess Diamond. Guys, it's a motorcycle, and when I bought mine, they got me for $8,000. Right, I paid $8,000 for this thing. Oh, it's an anniversary bike, and it's got the badges, and it's got Harley Davidson, and it's and you know what? $5,000. That was the best I could do. And the guy drove up from Maryland to take it. You know what I mean? Like I literally, like I had it on Craigslist. I had it on everything, word of mouth. There was a time where I remember I don't know if you guys remember anybody from the area, Big Bore Harley Davidson in Westport, Massachusetts. I remember walking into that place. I had gotten my license. I was 18 when I got my license. I had to be about 20. I walked into that place. There were no motorcycles in there. The guy was selling T-shirts and leather chaps and just Harley like memorabilia. No bikes. And I remember asking, what was his name? Gene. That was his name, Gene. And I remember meeting Gene. Like this guy looked like Garcia, from the Grateful Dead. And I'm like, hey, Gene. Tell me, what's the process? Like, how do I get a Harley? Like, I want to buy a Harley, and I don't want to buy a used one. I want to buy a new one. And guys, believe this is truth. My right hand. He says to me, well, what you can do is you give me $500, and I will give you a raffle ticket. And then what we do is every 6 months we go into the raffle bowl. And for all the people that paid $500, and when we pull a name out, and I'm like, oh, all right, so so you win a bike? He says, no, you don't win a bike. He goes, what happens at that point is whatever we get in for inventory, you have an opportunity to buy it. I said, so what if I don't like the color? He goes, well, that's not an option. I said, well, what if I don't like the style of the bike? He said, well, that's not an option. He goes, you got to decide whether or not you want to buy the bike. And if you don't want to buy the bike, we'll just drop your name back in the bucket again. And you'll have to wait another 6 months to pull your name out. Guys, I swear to you, you know what? The only people that can sell a product like that and have people coming back are the people that are selling crack and like addictive drugs, because you couldn't, if you told me that you were selling me a product like that, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going somewhere else. The idea that people were doing that and people were waiting, and that's how popular it was. Harley Davidson could not manufacture enough motorcycles to sell to people that they were actually doing raffles like that just to get an opportunity to buy a motorcycle that you didn't want. Now you can go anywhere. Now you go anywhere, and they're on the floor. You can buy them secondhand. You can buy them used. You can trade them in. Mom's Harley Davidson, Precision Harley Davidson, any one of those places. But nobody's buying them anymore. And the people that are buying them are the ones that are diehards. Like, they've been doing it. Like I say, I hate to say, like, categorize people, but you got people that drive Volkswagens, right? You got people that drive Subarus, and you got people that drive Harley Davidsons. You know what I mean? And these people will continue to buy the bike, and they love it. But to be honest with you guys, to pay insurance on a vehicle to have for 3 months out of the year, 2, 3 maybe if you're lucky, and the other time it's winter. Listen, let's talk about some winter sports, right? Maybe a snowmobile. You know what I mean? Maybe some skis. A motorcycle. Guys, I was I mentioned to you guys that we're traveling some more. We were in New Hampshire, and I don't want to go too long. We're already an hour in, but the wife and I took my daughter, my granddaughter, my son to Conway to enjoy an awesome weekend. And my wife was kind enough to drive home. I drove up. We drove all the way to Jefferson. We went to Santa's Village with my granddaughter. And then we kind of trekked back and we went into Conway because that's where we were staying and wanted to go shopping. So it made all the sense in the world. So I did the drive out, and then when and I drove the whole time for the weekend. And then when it was time to go home, I was just like, hey, why don't you take a break, get in the passenger seat, and I'll take the wheel. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. I never get a chance to sit in the passenger seat. Usually I'm the one that's driving. So, it was a treat for me. So, in the passenger seat, guys. So we're talking. We traveled down. Coming out of the mountains of New Hampshire, Route 3, and then I think it goes into. I think we went to 128, 195 South, kind of swung around, got back, got past 93, and we stayed on 95 all the way down, so you figure, the whole time we're probably on 90% of the drive we're on Route 95, and during that drive, every single time, listen, I don't want to exaggerate. Let me say that 9 times out of 10, every time I turned and looked over to the person on the side of us, they were already texting. They were on the phone. They weren't paying attention to the road. They weren't paying attention to me. They couldn't see me if I was looking at them. They no idea. No idea. They were completely oblivious. They're driving down the highway like zombies. And you know what? And we took my daughter's car. My daughter's got a 2019 RAV. And it's got the safety sense and the drive, and literally the freaking thing drives itself. You put the radar on, and the car will drive itself. So I probably get that a lot of these people are using or utilizing that safety sense to for the vehicle to kind of stay in the lanes. But nonetheless, man, don't you give a shit? Like, look at the windshield. You know what I mean? And what pisses me off is that's the dude that's driving behind me. You know what I mean? That's the guy that's right up on my ass and hitting me. Was it last year? I tell you right now, it was on December 10th of last year. I was on my way. It was my first day at my new job as a manager, right? My first day, I'm going up Route 24. This guy, we obviously traffic on Route 24. Imagine that. I stop right at exit 12 because there's traffic up ahead, and this douchebag in this Mercedes SUV plows right into the back of my truck. Right into the back of my truck. Like, it took a second. You know what I mean? Took a second. Because a couple of things are going through my mind at this point. You know what I mean? I look in the rearview mirror. I see this dude. Like, he doesn't even give a shit. I get out of the car, walk over. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? Guys, I'm not even sure he understood what I was saying to him. Like, I don't know if he spoke English or what it was. But, again, another perfect situation is somebody on the phone. He was on his phone texting, not paying attention. The guy didn't have a license, was driving. What did they cite him with? Distracted driving. It's terrible. Like, just terrible. Here I am on my way to my first day. Really excited, nervous, and now I'm rear-ended, and now I'm texting my manager on my first day to say, hey, I'm going to be late because I just got rear-ended by a jabroni who wasn't paying attention. But long story short, I hate. You know what? I don't have any sponsors or anything, so everything I say is just my own personal experience. We have Geico Insurance, and they were absolutely fantastic. I wanted to go to Carl's Collision in Florida. They actually suggested I went to Carl's. Carl's has always done an amazing job for me, and anytime I needed any type of body work done, they took my truck, they gave me a rental, they took care of everything, and within a week, I was getting a phone call that everything was done. I fronted them the $1,000. Probably within 2 weeks, Geico had a check in the mail, and I got my $1,000 back. So because I wasn't at fault and there was no wrongdoing, they didn't charge me deductible, and I wasn't penalized on my policy. So if you guys are looking for insurance, and if that helps you at all, I hope it does, because it was really, really good for me. So again, just an example of just distracted driving and people not paying attention. And again, and those are the people that I get upset with, because just take a second, take a minute, and realize that, you know what, you're putting everybody's life in danger, and something has to be done. And unfortunately, you know what I think, and I'll say this and I'll predict it here, and it's pretty much forever, but what I'm predicting is that at some point it's not going to matter. You got companies like Tesla, that are making, like the Model S's, and they're making these vehicles with autopilot. And quite honestly, the vehicle can drive itself much better than we can. You got a computer that's able to calculate, and then you got another computer that's redundancy for that computer, making sure that those calculations are correct. And again, much safer than flying in an airplane. And also knowing that, to be honest with you guys, I probably feel safer knowing that there's a computer driving the car than I would a human, because at least I know the computer's paying attention with only the commands and sensors of operating the vehicle, whereas the human being is more interested in what's going on Instagram and Facebook and whatever other communications happening while they should be focusing and driving on the road. So that's just my opinion about that. It seems like this podcast was all about opinions, and just a lot of just venting for me today. I apologize to everybody if I offended anybody. I don't apologize to anybody if I offended anybody. But again, I felt like today was just an important episode to just get a lot of that off my chest. I don't want people to judge me or my podcast based on just some observations that I'm making. I'm not picking sides. I'm not choosing sides. I believe that everybody walking this planet deserves to be happy, deserves to have an opportunity, and deserves to have a voice. So if there's something I'd like to leave everybody with here today is just, remember to talk and communicate. If we don't say anything to each other, we begin to assume, and unfortunately, we all know that that assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. And if we continue to just assume and pretend like we are always right and that our way and our way of thought is always right, imagine how much that would change if at some point we were visited by some other beings from some other planet. I know, as crazy and far-fetched as that sounds, the more we learn and evolve, the smarter we become, the technology that we advance. I mean, we currently have a man-made object on its way to Mars and then to Pluto. I mean, we've seen things in this galaxy that the Galileos had only dreamed of seeing, and we scroll through our Instagram and it's all right there for us to see, and we take it for granted. We don't realize what it is we're looking at, and to realize the brilliance, the technology, the knowledge, the dedication of many before us, to give us the ability to get in your car tomorrow morning and type in an address, and your GPS says, off to your next route, right? No traffic, get you there nicely and safe. Much better than the days of holding a map in your hand or a street book trying to figure out where the hell you are. So those are some of the technologies that we take for granted. Again, like I said, there's probably people listening to this podcast that don't understand or know a world that doesn't have GPS, cell phone coverage, or things of that nature. The Netflix. Guys, remember Netflix used to deliver DVDs to your house? Does anybody remember that? That used to happen. And I actually canceled my subscription because I wanted a DVD. I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but I was sticking to the man. I said, I'm not paying $9 a month and not getting a DVD to my house. And now I'm probably one of the largest consumers of bandwidth in this house, streaming from Netflix and other streaming platforms. So guilty as charged, guys. But really don't take for granted what is around you. I think people are too sensitive right now. I think everybody's really sensitive. I think everybody needs to take a step back and just digest what you're hearing before you react. I think what we're seeing on TV isn't entirely true. I think there are people out there that have ulterior motives that, they're trying to feed us information to make us act and do things that we wouldn't normally do out of fear and false will. Don't fall for it. Follow your gut. Believe in yourself. You know what I mean? You made it this far, right? You're doing something right. Listen, wherever you are and you're listening, you have the ability to listen to my voice on command whenever you feel like it, on a device that can probably provide you with any question, the answer to any question that you may have. The only question that cannot answer is, what's the secret to happiness? Because the answer is always different for every single individual. What works for you doesn't work for me. What works for me might not work for you. But that doesn't mean that we can't all get along and we can't all have a difference of opinion. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean I should have an opinion or try to influence you to not like it either. I think the beauty in everything is the untouched. Nature is untouched. A flower grows. It grows beautiful. You step on it, you kill it, it dies. It doesn't grow beautiful. So let's take a minute to embrace and just step back and process what we're seeing and look at around the world, you guys. Just look around you. People are happy. People are doing okay. I think so. I know that there are some wonderful people that I have the opportunity to work with every day. And I smile at them and they smile back at me. We talk. We have conversations. We talk about the weather. We talk about the economy. We talk about family. And it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. And let's not let the boss dictate or represent what we all are. Just because he's our president doesn't mean he's our father. He didn't raise you. He didn't have influence on your opinion or the way you speak or the way you think. What he's doing is running the country like a business. Run the country like a business. Let me get my payday. Don't go dipping into my shit. I don't want your shit. And just all let us live happy. And with that said, my friends, this is going to be the end of episode 2. And I hope that I see you all on episode 3. We went a little longer than anticipated today, hour and 12 minutes. I just, to me, I think if we're continuing to talk, then things are going well. So until next time, I really appreciate you giving me your time. And remember, all roads lead here.